Hello, my friends. This is life coach Mike Trugman, and welcome to an episode of Mike's Search for Meaning. I'm after some big questions. Why are we here? What makes a fulfilling life? How can we grow individually and collectively? Each episode, I'll dive deep with leaders who are doing great work in the world and see how they organize their life. Books read, value systems, resources used, and stories that show how each of you can create the life and the world of your dreams. Hello, my friends. Welcome to a solo episode of Mike's Search for Meaning. So, something that's been on my mind a lot this week, to the tune of delivering 2 workshops on the topic, is beliefs. Like, how do we create beliefs? How do we orient ourselves around beliefs? Where do beliefs come from? And after delivering 2 workshops, I've been really inspired to deliver a solo episode on it so that it's recorded and that it can serve the many people that I would love to serve. So I think it's helpful to start with, where do beliefs come from? And so let's start from when we are born. So when we are born, I believe that we are totally blank slates, that a baby is infinite possibility. And beyond being infinite possibility, there's a certain way that we are genetically coded. I like to think of that as essence. The movie Soul does a really good job. If you're familiar with the Disney movie Soul, it does a really good job of kind of breaking down how are humans made. Like, what is the human spirit comprised of? And so before any beliefs are imposed on us, there's a certain essence that we have. There's a certain quality of our being that is inherent in who we are. And I actually carry my essence words with me in multiple places in my apartment. They're right here. So if you're watching on YouTube, my essence words are connection, integrity, love, presence, and play. Now, these words would be descriptors of who I am, regardless of how hard I try or do not try to display these qualities. And I think that all of us, to a certain extent, carry these words with not those 5 exactly for every person, but all of us carry a certain essence about us. We have certain qualities that people would describe us as, even if we weren't aware that we were coming across that way. So we start as these babies that are infinite possibility. We have a certain essence, a certain temperament. Some of us are more quiet. Some of us are more outgoing. Some of us are more introverted, extroverted, all the different aspects of personality, right? As we start to grow, as we become children, as we become teenagers, we learn more and more about the way the world works via the people who are caregivers for us. So usually it's beyond that. It's more than just caregivers. But as children, we're mostly taking in the world through the eyes and the viewpoints of our parents and of our community, so our immediate surroundings. So for me, I grew up in upper middle class, affluent, culturally Jewish. I went to Hebrew school too. These were things that really informed my worldview and my belief system, right? Those are things that really shaped my belief system. So as we're children, we are so incredibly malleable. We're taking in all of this information about the way the world works. If I do this, how is it received? If I do that, how is it received? What makes me a good person? What gets punished? All of these things, we're really taking that in and absorbing it. Other things that contribute to our belief systems when we are younger, but they carry with us forever, but they certainly contribute the most when we are younger. Social norms. So a yearning that I had when I was younger is I wanted to be really popular. I wanted to be like a jock. I wanted to be smart, all the things that make someone popular, right? So social norms and hierarchy and status, those inform our beliefs a lot. And then there's also institutions, so our education system, jobs, culture at large, the systems that we operate in. So there are certain ways of being in the world that are more celebrated than other ways of being. And I'm grossly oversimplifying, but what happens over time is that there are probably certain parts of our essence or our personality that get tucked away, that we learn are not as celebrated, don't create belonging, don't create a sense of connection, all the things that we want. There are parts of our essence that don't create those things as much, and there are parts of our essence and our personality that are more celebrated. And I like to use myself as an example because I think we teach what we most know. And hopefully, me speaking to what's been true for me invites you to look inward about how are ways that you have felt maybe suppressed or that you've tucked away parts of yourself, and how are ways that you have felt celebrated or like you really love certain parts of yourself. So other things that shape beliefs. So I didn't mention like gender is another part of it, right? So there's certain ways that as a male that are probably expected societally of me versus a woman, sexual orientation, like all of these things really shape our belief system. So going back to parts of my essence that I felt like were more celebrated, or parts of my personality that were more celebrated, parts that got tucked away. I am very analytically smart. So from a young age, I was really praised for my ability to problem solve, be good at math, like very practical, rational. I was always someone that people could talk to about their challenges. Like I was always what people you might call air quotes a safe space. Like people would talk to me about what was really going on for them, and I was always fun. I liked playing sports, right? So these are just a couple of things that were more celebrated about my personality. Things that I tucked away about myself. I was always sensitive, gentle, sweet, uh, fearful in a lot of ways. Like I really cared a lot about what other people thought of me and how I was perceived, observant, quieter. And then there's all sorts of stories and beliefs that I can layer on top of that, like that I was awkward, boring, uninteresting. These are things that I learned over time, not because anyone forced them on me, but those are things that I internalized over time. So what happens, I'm tying this into beliefs because what ends up happening over time is I started to lean more and more into what I thought were the air quotes good parts of me, and neatly tried to tuck away the parts that were not celebrated. I didn't want people to see that there was this really terrified, scared boy inside of me who felt like a chameleon in a lot of ways, like doing whatever I could do to fit in. And over time, I guess in the short run, there's a certain payoff that I get from that, right? Because I'm not going to get made fun of. If I put on a certain type of performance, there's a way that that actually gets celebrated by people that I really care about. And so it then even deepens the beliefs I have about myself. Okay, I got to be more of that chameleon. I have to put on that I'm really confident and not show that I'm scared because I'm getting good results out of this thing. What happens over time, invariably, with every single person that I've ever encountered, is that there's a deep longing for what we might call your true self to emerge. And our true self includes all of who we are. It's not just the parts of ourself that we like or that other people like. It's all of ourself. And when there is incongruence within us, so when we feel like we are putting on a performance all the time and we are inauthentic and incongruent, that causes a lot of inner friction. So how does this tie into beliefs? Well, there's a certain way that when we externalize our beliefs, and when I say externalize our beliefs, what I mean is when we make them about how other people will deem us a good person or deem us successful, there's more and more of a gap that happens in between us. And the longing that we all have is to feel a sense of wholeness and deep connection with ourselves. So if we are really honest with ourselves, all of our beliefs are pointing to some inner state that we want. The big house, the $1 million in your bank account, they're all not actually about that thing. They're about the feeling that we would have if we had that thing. And it's all empty if it's not coming from a place that is innerly congruent, right? That's coming from a place of truth within us. So that's a lot of times the work that I am doing with myself and with the clients that I work with is making sense of all this, right? Because a lot of times we get really confused because there's certain parts of ourselves that we just haven't reconciled. There's certain parts of ourselves that feel like, yeah, I want to keep that over there because that's not good. So I've got to lean on this part of myself. And it just doesn't work. As much as all of us want it to, it just doesn't work. So that's at a high level, that's how I look at beliefs and the challenge that we have around beliefs. Now I want to make a distinction. So what is a belief and what is truth? Truth is something that exists whether or not we believe it to be true. And the example that I always use, I've borrowed this from other people, right? So it's not uniquely my own, but there's no one I know that I've ever encountered. There's probably someone out there in the world who doesn't believe in gravity, but I don't know. But there's not much of a conversation to be had with that person. So whether or not you believe in gravity, this pen is going to fall when I drop it, right? So that's a truth. Gravity is a truth. There's nothing to discuss around beliefs here. The thing that happens with a lot of us is that we believe that our beliefs are like gravity, that of course they are true. Of course it's terrible to be a Republican. Of course it's terrible to be a Democrat. That's just the truth. Everyone needs to see it the way that I see it. So I know I'm veering off into a little bit of a different realm than what I'm talking about in terms of our essence. But point one of this conversation is we all have this longing to be whole. We all have this longing to be congruent, to be authentic to ourselves. Point two is we are not our beliefs. We are not our thoughts. That they really feel true, but that one of the most powerful technologies that we have as humans is that we have consciousness. We have the availability to delineate from our beliefs. That beliefs were most of the time not intentional, that they were handed to us by other really well-meaning people who also weren't congruent and true to who they really were when they handed you beliefs, that were doing the best they could, but handed you a little bit of wounding and a little bit of, you should do this so that people think that, right? So truth exists whether or not we believe in it. A belief exists to the extent that we give energy to it. And the really hard thing about changing beliefs is that when we have a certain set of old beliefs, we've believed them for a long time, and therefore they have received a lot of energy from us. I will bring it back to me again. And hopefully by now you're starting to do a little bit of your own reflection, but I'm going to use myself as the example. For a long time, I believed I am not interesting, and therefore I do not have much to say. So if I really believe that about myself, why the hell would I ever start a podcast or start a business where I become incredibly visible? Well, this old belief of I'm not interesting, I started to question it a little bit and challenge that, because there is this yearning in me, right? Like on some level, I really do want to have a lot of attention and to have a voice, and really enjoys hitting record and having the opportunity to speak for an hour straight. So when we brush up against this belief that we have given tons of energy to in the past, the first thing that I do, which is incredibly counterintuitive compared to what I hear in most of the personal development world, simply bring awareness to it and identify what is this belief's intention for me. So if we stick with the belief of I am not interesting and therefore I do not speak in public, what does this belief want for me? Well, it wants to keep me safe, right? There's fear there. There's fear. How is Mike going to be perceived if he steps into this new venture? Is he going to have this sense of belonging? Are his friends still going to like him? These are like really important primal human needs. And so, of course, when my sense of belonging and connection and safety is at threat, there's going to be fear there. So meeting the old belief with a sense of compassion, understanding, empathy is actually what allows for more movement to happen. What I see a lot of times is that people try and ignore the old belief and, in a way, maybe not pulverize themselves, but really forcefully bring yourself into a different direction. What happens if that's the case, from my vantage point, you might get a specific result that you're looking for. So you might get better at a new skill, but it still will have this inner sense of incongruence. You won't feel good about it. We see this all the time for people who are chasing things. I think about Will Smith all the time. Will Smith, who grew up with a very disciplinarian father, militant about following through on things, being disciplined. I believe Will Smith had a quote like, "I'm going to die before I fall off of this treadmill," something like that. And what he thought would bring him a sense of inner peace was being really successful, working hard, tirelessly. And he achieved an immense amount of success in his career, got to the pinnacle, the mountaintop of Hollywood, and realized, I still feel, if not empty inside, I still feel this like really the pain, the ache that's in here didn't go away. So I don't believe, unless you're only about achieving results, and that's fine if you're about that, but that's not the way that I operate in my life. If you're only about the results, it's fine. You can just start to take the new belief and let's just massage that into your life, right? I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to practice. I'm going to be disciplined about it. I like doing that from a place of self-acceptance and self-love. And so the way that I look at old beliefs is we need to meet them with that compassion, empathy, understanding, that underneath the fear or whatever it's trying to protect for you is something really sacred and beautiful, a sense of belonging, a sense of connection, a sense of peace. I belong in this tribe. So meeting the beliefs with that level of compassion and understanding, it releases its grip on you. And so to shift the belief, it really helps to have more of that inner sense of freedom instead of this forcefulness. You've probably experienced this in relationships with other people, right? When you are told what to do, it's a very basic human thing to want to resist that. We don't really like being told what to do. We definitely want to push back on that. But when we are embraced, not excusing actions that are like it's different to be accountable, right? We want to be accountable for our actions. But if we can see what is underneath the actions, the beliefs, the thoughts, there's definitely an element of truth in there. There's something to pay attention. So this is a really important step in creating new beliefs, is to embrace what was actually really beautiful about the old beliefs. And this can lead to not only a sense of self-compassion, but also compassion for parents, society, for all of the ways that we've been programmed in our life to not have this like, oh, I can't believe you did this to me and programmed me with all these limiting beliefs, but to have a more gentle, like, thank you for your efforts to keep me safe. And would you be open to try something different? Because this old way of being isn't working. It's not serving me for what I really want. Another technology modality that is really helpful in questioning, being skeptical of our old beliefs is called Byron Katie's The Work. Byron Katie's The Work is a 4-step tool that is as follows. So you take a belief. Let's just take the belief, if I make a lot of money, or people who make lots of money are evil. That's a belief that I have carried at some point in my life. So let's just examine that belief. People who make tons of money are evil. The first step in The Work by Byron Katie is to write that belief down and then ask yourself, is it true? So that's step 1. Step 2, can I be absolutely certain that it is true? So if you answer yes, it is true, then you go to step 2. Can I be absolutely certain it's true? If you, on step 1, say, no, it isn't true, which happens a lot of times with beliefs because they're never true. They're never actually 100% true. Then the invitation is to go to step 3. And step 3 is where the real discomfort around, oh, that is hard, happens. So step 3 asks you, what is your experience when you believe it to be true? Like, what happens for you when you believe the thought money is evil or people who make money are evil? What happens? What is your experience when you believe that thought and that belief? And for me, it's like I feel resentful. I feel angry. I feel tight. Like, that's my experience when I believe that thought to be true. And the fourth part of the work is, who would I be without that thought or without that belief? And that's a big question. And it's also it's such a codified way to examine a belief and to open into possibility for what is another way of being and operating. So who would I be without the thought of people who make lots of money are evil? As I sit with that, I feel freer. I feel more creative. I feel more expansive, right? That belief has a certain weight to it that isn't quite serving me. Now, what's underneath that belief, to go back to having a little bit of more compassion and not just pulverizing that old belief, what's underneath that belief is this yearning for equality. Like, I want thriving to be a word that is in the vernacular of every single person that exists in the world. And that's a beautiful thing. Underneath that belief, which isn't serving me, there's a beautiful yearning. There's a beautiful wish. I want there to be thriving for more people in this world. So when I can connect to that, so how is it serving me to carry the belief money is evil if I want thriving for more people in the world? Now we're getting somewhere, right? Because it's not really serving me. Am I really impacting the thing that I really want to happen? Am I making a difference towards there being more thriving in the world by holding tightly to money is evil? People who make money are evil. That's not my experience. That doesn't feel true to me. So then comes in the work, the turnaround. You have those 4 steps. I'll repeat them again. The 4 steps of the work. You take a belief and ask, is it true? If your answer is no, you can go to step 3. If your answer is yes, step 2. Can I be absolutely certain it's true? And if you're being honest with yourself, the answer is always no, because no belief is ever 100% true. Question number 3, what do I feel? What is my experience when I believe it to be true? And number 4, who would I be without that thought? Then comes the turnaround. The turnaround is to try on for size. What if the exact opposite was true? So people who make lots of money are inherently good. People who make lots of money are benevolent, are forces for change. Whatever you would deem as the opposite of evil. And then what happens when you believe that to be true? And it's this really interesting thing, right? There's still parts of me that have tension around that, like, oh, but there's so many people who are suffering, and it's such, like, is that really good to believe that? But there is this inner sense of freedom that's more available to me. I feel more creative. I feel more likely to be generous when I believe that to be true. And so then it becomes discernment. Like, what are the belief structures that will help you live the life that you truly, deeply desire? And now let's spend some time to examine that. Like, how do you identify what it is that is the life that you truly, deeply desire? Because there's a coach by the name of Jim Dethmer. I heard him say before, most people's wanters are broken. And what he means by that is, you ask most of us what we want, we have no idea, because we haven't really bothered to consider that in a long time. So here's one exercise that I offer as a good starter if you aren't sure about what it is that you want. If you think about the last month or so of content you've engaged with, so Instagram posts, movies you've watched, songs you've listened to, TV shows, anything at all that you've engaged with, and specifically if there's people or characters that you're most drawn to. One place I love to start with people is, what were the qualities of the people that you were most drawn to? Now, one of my former mentors and teachers has this phrase, spot it, got it. Spot it, got it, meaning if I am drawn to someone who is altruistic, that is a quality that lives within me. There's a certain resonance to pay attention to. If someone is really vulnerable and open, and I am drawn to that, if that feels like something that I'm finding myself leaning in towards, That's something that I'm yearning for in my own life that is now mine to claim. Generous, loving, kind, whatever your word is. Powerful could be a word. Confident, courageous, brave, in integrity. There's all sorts of different things that we can be drawn to, but you start to pay attention to the qualities of people that you're really drawn to. You then at least have some clues about what to build your belief systems around and let go of the shoulds. I one time was working with a client who they made a list of their core values, and one of them was spirituality. And I could sense that spirituality was absolutely not one of the words. I shouldn't say I could sense it absolutely wasn't. It just didn't feel like there was a resonance there as he was talking about it. Didn't feel like it actually was important to him. And so I challenged him on that. I said, it sounds like spiritual is something you wrote down because you think you should have it. Is that right? And he paused to consider, and he said, yeah, actually. I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about spirituality. I'm not particularly drawn to it. I said, okay, great. So that sounds like it was something that was handed to you. It's not actually a belief that you have. It's a belief that you think you should have. So let's go back inward. What's a belief that you have? And so in a lot of ways, it's really not that complicated. Like, what are the things that resonate most with you? If no one was watching you and you knew no one was going to be judging you, what are the things that you're most drawn to? That is an excellent clue about what you believe, or certainly about qualities that you admire in people and therefore can integrate in yourself. Another really important part about behavior change that I think we get almost inversed. We get it completely backwards. We think that the belief needs to happen and therefore the action will follow immediately after. And I think there's way more of a circular feedback loop, that it takes a lot of practice and repeated action to make the belief actually come into fruition, right? So it's not fake it until you make it. I really don't like fake it until you make it. But a lot of times we can have these moments of clarity, these moments of insight where things do feel possible and you're in touch with what it is that really matters to you and what it is that you want. So there's this moment of clarity, and then you're like, great, I believe it now. I believe that life is abundant and that love is everything. A lot of times music and the arts and in good movies, they help us to kind of get right to the heart of it. But it is only with repeated practice that those things actually become true in your body. So a moment of insight or knowledge without action is just a thought. A moment of clarity or insight with action can be a pivotal moment of change in your life. I'll say that again. A moment of clarity without action is just knowledge and insight. A moment of clarity or insight with action can be a pivotal moment of change in your life. So it really helps talk about having compassion for your old ways of being. They have been deeply grooved and practiced, not only for your entire lifetime up until this moment, but probably for many generations before as well. So think about money scarcity is a really common one. Like, think about how adaptive and necessary it was for survival for many of our previous generations to have a mindset of scarcity, right? You don't want to be thinking about abundance when there's a food shortage. That's not good for your adaptation for survival. It's just not. And so the challenge is the goalposts have shifted a lot over time. What happens is our parents that grew up from Depression era parents, or maybe your parents are Depression era parents, come from a line of, this was what was good for my survival. So of course I'm going to hunker down, and have an attitude of scarcity, because there's finances are scarce, food is scarce, there's a real shortage right now. So it's actually really adaptive to have that belief for a certain amount of time. Now, if you're listening to this and you live in the United States, we do not have that set of challenges anymore. Our challenges have changed. In a lot of ways, we have more psychological challenges because they're not survival level adaptation challenges. Previous scarcity is a survival challenge. Anxious thoughts, those are problems of abundance, right? Those are challenges of abundance. If we haven't reconciled our inner beliefs, our thoughts, we make up challenges, right? Because that's what's familiar. So anyway, I'm going off a little bit on a tangent here, but oftentimes our beliefs have been so deeply embedded in our psyche and in our soma, in our body, for many generations. It helps to really have compassion towards, wow, that did really serve me for a certain amount of time. Like, it was helpful to have an attitude of scarcity for a certain amount of time. When we can meet our past with understanding, forgiveness if that's necessary, but certainly understanding and compassion, it makes so much more space for what might emerge, what might be possible in our life from here. So it is when we make peace with our past that we then become much freer to create the present and future that we deeply desire. It is when we make peace with our past that we are freer to create the present and the future that we deeply desire. And when you're clear on that, it is all about practice. Practice, practice, practice. So one practice that I offer for people who are looking to connect more into love, abundance, connection, I just offered this at one of my workshops earlier today. Write down 5 to 10 things, ideally really simple things that don't take a lot of time, that create a sense of awe, wonder, or joy in your life. So write down 5 to 10 things that create a sense of awe, wonder, or joy in your life. It could be music, it could be certain movement, dance, singing, writing. They're usually simple, and it helps to think back to childhood. So for me, and gosh, I haven't done this in such a long time, but my happy place when I was younger was just shooting hoops outside by myself. That felt like a meditative place for me. Like, I really could put all of the masks down. I could take that off and just be Mike. Just be myself, like in my zone, not worrying about what other people thought, just in flow, shooting hoops by myself. So reminder to yourself, Mike, maybe carve out some time to shoot some hoops. But certainly other things that give me joy, working out, connecting with my family, being goofy. There's certain music, certain shows, podcasts, writing, going for a walk outside, slowing down to connect with the food I'm eating. There's so many different ways that you can connect to a sense of awe, wonder, and joy. And if you make a list, then you have this nice handy toolkit that can help you tap into these higher states of vibration. Another practice, which I was really getting into, make a list of things that you haven't made peace with in your past. And then ask yourself, what would it take to create a sense of peace around this, or to leave it in the past where it belongs so that it's not coloring my present and not dictating my future? What are the things that happened in my past that are occupying space in my present and therefore stopping me from creating the future that I want? And what will it take to make peace with those things that I haven't let go of yet? So was there a mistake that you made? Is there a person you're holding a grudge with? All of the above. What needs to be let go of? And are you willing to let go of it? It takes real honesty, right? Because if you're actually unwilling and being honest with yourself, I'm not willing to let go of this thing that happened in the past. That is totally okay. It needs to come from a place of truth within you. But at least then you know, this is the thing that I am unwilling to let go of from my past, and I'm committed to holding on to it for now. And I'm opting into that. And you're being choiceful about it, because what happens usually is we are unconsciously holding on to these things that we don't even realize are occupying so much space in our present, and therefore taking away from creating the future that we really desire. So those are 2 really important practices. And then when you adopt a new belief, so if the belief is abundance is my birthright, or money is abundant, or love is abundant, connection is abundant, there are plenty of people who I can really deeply connect with in the world. What's going to make that more deeply true in your psyche and in your soma is practice. And so what are the reps that you can get to make it truer and truer? Because it's not going to feel, so again, it's not act as if necessarily. It's certainly not fake it till you make it. There's a moment of clarity. Of course it's true, but there's a skepticism around that because it hasn't happened in my human experience yet. So now how can I build the human experience to make it more and more tangible? Another little cheat code in practice around this. Another way that I'm speaking directly to myself here as someone who does a lot of things by myself. Shout out to all my fellow introverts and solopreneurs. Another cheat code is to immerse yourself in community with people who are up to the same thing or that you would aspire to be up to the same thing as. So for me, it really helps to be in community with other coaches, or as recently as this past weekend, I did a retreat with my mother at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. It is heaven on earth for me. That place is magical. Immersing myself in community. And here's my Omega pen. Shout out. I don't know if you could see it on YouTube. When you immerse yourself in community, when you surround yourself with the type of people that you want to be surrounded with, you will, over time, with enough repeated practice and action, start to become more like what you want to believe. Now, the really common saying in the personal development space is that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And there's really some truth to that, because as humans, we are incredibly social beings. Whether you are introverted, extroverted, or however you identify, we really rely on feedback from other people, and we really take in a lot of our information from our surroundings. We're incredibly social beings. So surrounding yourself with other people who have the beliefs that you deeply aspire to is really a cheat code of sorts that's going to help you start to create more of the life that you really want. So as we move towards the back end here, this is a distinction that in some ways I've probably danced around, but I haven't made unclear. I think the journey to deep self-discovery is largely about unlearning the things that are no longer serving us and learning what is already true within us. So what do I mean by that? Unlearning the things that no longer serve us. Things like it's dangerous to approach a stranger and talk to them. Now, that's not something that I do on a regular basis, but I've had some really magical encounters by walking up to someone and putting myself out there and having a fear of rejection and then having these really incredible connections. So having the belief there's tons of possibility out there requires me unlearning all of the ways that it is unsafe psychologically. Again, I'm not saying that it's good to just randomly walk up to people all the time, but sometimes there's something really, if it's coming from a sweet and tender and sincere place, that walking up to someone can create really great connections. I've had this experience many, many times over the past few years. So especially if you're like me and identify more as like a reserved person, it can be really helpful to let go, unlearn the belief that it's really scary to put yourself out there. That's a better one. It's scary to put yourself out there. So scratch the stranger thing. It's scary to put yourself out there. Unlearning that requires me having a deep understanding of all the ways that was a protective mechanism for me. And then getting into a practice of, well, let's make a list, all the ways that it could be really beneficial for me to put myself out there. What are the ways that would support me in becoming the person that I aspire to be? Now, I really believe that when we can unlearn a lot of the patterns that we inherently want to connect. Think about all the kids who have no problem. I'm sure you've had this experience, a kid running up to you and going, wow, I really like your shirt, or whatever they want to say, right? They have no reservations about doing that. They haven't been conditioned to believe that it's weird to do that. And so when we can unlearn, because that's natural, that's inherent in a child, when we can unlearn the conditioning around, that would be really weird, they're going to reject me, I don't know, and kind of just learn to what we might call trust ourselves a little bit more. It's not that we will then want to approach every person and compliment every person, but sometimes we get these signals, the signals that life gives us become clearer. And then we might get this inkling, I don't know what this is, but I'm having this weird intuition that approaching this person might be really helpful. I actually had this experience at Omega this past weekend. I've had this really deep yearning for a while now to have a deeper sense of spiritual community in the area that I live in. And at times I've been in despair about that. Like I've cold outreach to so many different people in the area. I thought they were thoughtful messages, whether it was LinkedIn or email or even a voice note. And a lot of times they weren't answered. But because I've practiced enough, I didn't make that mean something about me, that I'm getting rejected, I'm not interesting, right? Like those stories still live in me a little bit, but I'm certainly more oriented towards now. I'm going to put myself out there. This is a yearning within me, and so it is valid and is true, and I'm going to act on it. So at this weekend, I was at Omega, and I spoke to someone who lives probably, we determined they live 15 minutes away from me. And we had a nice conversation, and we bumped into each other a couple of times, and it got to the end of the weekend, and I was like, wow, I wish I asked her if she wanted to maybe, meet up and get a cup of coffee or something like that, because she lives in my area. This exact type of person that I've been yearning to connect with more, like a spiritual person who really cares about well-being, who really wants to support others in creating these really beautiful, intentional lives. She lives 15 minutes from me, and I forgot. I totally didn't bother yet to ask her or ask her if she would be interested in meeting up. And serendipity would have it that with like an hour left in my time at Omega this weekend, we pass each other I was leaving the bathroom. She was on her way towards the bathroom. And I almost walked right past her, but I listened to that intuition within me. I said, wait, hold on a second. This might be weird, but I've been thinking for a really long time about wanting to have more of this in-person spiritual community around me. And we live really close to each other. And I'm just wondering if that would be something that would be interesting to you. And we ended up having this really beautiful conversation, and we haven't met up yet, but we're going to get coffee with each other in a couple of weeks. And so with the old script of it's dangerous to approach other people, or putting yourself out there is really scary and you're going to get rejected, you're going to get hurt, it's so much more unlikely that I would have been able to create this type of connection that now it is being created, right? And so in a lot of ways, I'm living and breathing this life that at one point felt so unattainable to me. And most of that work hasn't been, Mike, I'm talking to myself, I got to teach myself how to create connection better, and all the tips and strategies, like what are the 4 steps to create deeper connection. It's been unlearning the things that in some ways really served me. So thank you for protecting me. I understand fear, that it can be really hard to be rejected. I still feel pain when I get rejected or experience that I am being rejected. And also we see what's possible on this other side. So can we dance over here for a little bit and see what that's like? And I've had the good fortune of seeing that there's really beautiful things that come from that, from listening to the callings, from listening to the whispers in my heart, in my soul, in my spirit. And that only comes from practice. So I've been looking at this for 5 years now, and it still feels like I am just beginning. Now, that's not a very powerful invitation to the party if you're just getting started in personal development work, to say, yeah, it just feels like you're getting started after 5 years. I think I'm going to stay over here, Mike. But I can tell you, it feels really, really fucking good to listen to those callings, and to listen and to practice putting it into actual material reality. So the way that I want to close this episode around beliefs, but that I think went in a million different directions from there. A lot of times, if we haven't done enough of our work, and I'm guilty of this all the time, we start to attach beliefs to something in the external world that we think will bring us a sense of congruence, inner peace, etc. So let's make this really tangible. A thing that I have been clinging onto for quite some time, since I started my coaching practice, was I will feel a sense of inner peace, of inner power, of inner freedom if my coaching practice is big. I have 20 clients, I'm making a big 6-figure salary. That is what will bring me a sense of wholeness and inner peace and freedom. And that is where beliefs can get really tricky. And the thing to do here, one of the distinctions that I learned is called be, do, have. Be, do, have. What does that mean? So when I start to create this belief of I need to have 20 clients and a big 6-figure salary to be fulfilled, happy, content, etc., it creates this dependency on certain outcomes happening in my life for me to feel whole and congruent. Be, do, have starts with being. So what does it take for me to just start from a place of contentment, happiness, abundance, love, connection? It mostly takes unlearning all the conditions that have been created in my life and just trusting my essence. So this is like a full circle conversation. The essence that we are born with a lot of times is the gift, is the medicine that we were put on this planet to serve. So when I can connect to my essence, abundance and love and all these beautiful things that I think that clients and money will give me, they're already right here. They already live within me. And that's not to say that the external things don't matter, right? It's not to say that making a good amount of money doesn't matter. But it is to say that those things are not going to bring you a sense of inner peace unless it's coming from that place already. So the work for me and the work for all of us, what will it take for you to get to that place within you so that you're creating from a place of abundance and love, even if the outside world might not be telling you that? You probably wouldn't be deemed successful, or when you get started, that's very rarely going to be the case, right? You're going to be a beginner and you're going to be kind of fumbling your way around and learning. It's very rare that you're going to just get started and have this overnight success. That's really a myth. So one of the sneaky things about beliefs is that they can attach onto, this is the thing I want, right? I want that house. I want that car. I want that vacation. And those are amazing things, but they are experienced way more deeply from a place of, I already am love. I already am connection. I already am abundance. And if that feels funky for you, if that feels like it's a little too out there, then first of all, I get you. I have that skepticism within me. But what I would invite you into is think about the different things you've achieved in your life and how good they felt for a fleeting moment and how quickly you return to your set point, whatever it was. So if your happiness was right here, you get a promotion, goes up here for a second, and then invariably over time, the set point goes back down here. And if you're on YouTube and watching on video, you can see that I put my hand in the middle, it went up and then went back down. The way to experience more abundance, more gratitude in your life is to love what you already have, right? It's to love what you already have. If you can be in abundance with where you are, if you can be in love with where you are, then your life only expands from there and it grows and it grows and it grows. But if you're chasing abundance and chasing love, the goalposts will move forever. All right, so there's plenty more that I could say about beliefs, but I am going to wrap up the episode with just a couple of things here. So if this is something that you're wanting to explore more deeply, a lot of times it could be really helpful to examine your beliefs with a coach. We all have blind spots, myself included. So I have invested tens of thousands of dollars in my own personal development because there's no shot in hell that I ever would have figured all this out on my own. I needed teachers. I need community. I need other people around me who have done the work that support me in doing my work. And so if this episode is really interesting to you, it has your attention, but you're feeling a little bit stuck, reach out to me. I love connecting with listeners and people who are engaged with the material that I'm putting out there. And if you really feel called to it, I would love to offer you a 1-hour coaching session. So if you reach out to me, we can set up that conversation. We'd be happy to serve you in your journey to deeper inner congruence, abundance, creating a life from that type of place. That's the game I'm up to in this life. If you like this episode, I also have 2 more asks. If you loved this episode, you can either or both share this episode with a friend who you think will get something from it. And or please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. I will be putting out lots more content like this. And then one last ask. If there are certain topics that you think are interesting, like I said, I love hearing from you guys. And so I want to serve my audience, and whatever it is that you're most drawn to or interested by, or challenges that you're having, if you send them my way, my commitment to you is that I will make an episode about it at some point. So please do send me personal requests, episodes that you would like me to cover. And thank you so much for being here with me. It's really been an honor to spend these 55 minutes or so with you. Really appreciate you listening. Thank you for walking this path of life with me. Sending you lots of love and light. Have a great rest of your day or evening, and take good care. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to Mike's Search for Meaning. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, share this episode with your friends, and leave a review. I look forward to seeing you next time, my friends. And until then, stay safe, stay well, and keep living with purpose. Peace.